I think about courses. I love the first part where people are standing and you're making them comfortable in your home. I love that first part of sharing. And then I love the ease of when you sit down at the table, and you serve a first course and it's something kind of comforting. And then the main course is where people really settle into it. And the dessert is just, and I never want it to end, by the way. I never wanted to end. So I grew up with a mother who wanted to serve more and more courses because she liked to have us at the table. So I think I'm kind of the same.
It hit me the other day why I love artists so much. It has to do with the fact that these are the people walking around the planet that are riding passion hard into whatever they are involved in. It turns out it doesn't even matter at all what the thing is they're making. You can see it when you see their art. You can feel it when you talk with them. It is simply in them, and their juice for me is contagious. Each artist has their own enticing world they've created by following what brings them alive. Today's guest is a perfect example of this. Joanne Weir is an amazing world-renowned chef whose art and life is cooking. From PBS cooking shows to destination cooking classes, cookbooks, designing restaurants, and of course, preparing an extraordinary Sunday supper for her friends, Joanne simply is the most delicious example of what creativity combined with inspiration can look, feel, and especially in this case, taste like. If a citrus tangelo sorbet, passion and kiwi fruit compote, followed by chocolate macarons sounds even mildly yummy, you're going to love my conversation with Joanne. Find links to her Instagram account, her cooking shows, restaurants, website, and a tantalizing assortment of pictures of her art in the show notes of this episode by going to art2life.com and clicking on podcasts. Join me now as we catch up with Joan in San Francisco, California. Oh, and a little warning, you will, by the end of this podcast, be hungry. Welcome to Art2Life, a podcast for the creatively curious. My name is Nicholas Wilton, and each week I'll help you rediscover not just the art of your life, but the art in your life. Join me as we explore that perfect blue at twilight, the wild frontiers of art making, and the extraordinary joy of finding your way as you go. Joanne, thanks so much for joining us today and sharing with us some of your journey in the world of cooking and creativity.
Yeah, thanks. I'm really happy to be on here because when you invited me, it kind of excited me because I do have an art background. And I think of what I do as an art. So yeah, I'm excited to talk to you.
Yeah. And I think that's what I've noticed in your career and in your menus, in the food I've eaten of yours, which is a different way to experience someone's art, to eat it. But there's an adventure in there and a risk taking and just an energy about your whole world and life and what you offer and what you teach. You're so generous with all of the teaching as well. So I'm curious. So take us back. So you started as an artist.
I did, well, I always loved it, even as a kid, but in everything in my life, whether it was my room or the clothes I wore or whatever I thought of, it was art to me. And it was creativity, I guess I should say. So I loved art when I was in high school. Did I think I was an amazing painter? No. But I really loved it, and I just continued to do it. I also really loved other things. Like I loved to sew. I loved weaving. So I ended up in college getting my degree in fine arts. I got my degree in art education, but also in photography. And I showed my work a lot. And I didn't do printmaking then, but when I moved to Boston, I got a job as an art teacher in high school. And I taught for 5 years, I taught printmaking. So until I said, I can't do this for the rest of my life. And I was going to go back to school and I wanted to go to mass art and get my master's. But at the same time, I loved cooking. I'm a fourth generation professional cook, and cooking came so easily to me. And art, it also felt like a viable art. Whereas fine arts for me, I didn't see myself really as being a photographer, though I loved it. I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do. So I ended up studying cooking.
Do you think of it cooking as an art form, I mean, I know it's an art form, but I mean, do you think of, how did you think about, how did it relate to, you were printmaking, you were making art, and then you started cooking? Is it just a completely intuitive thing? Is it a different thing? Are you, like, when I cook, I'm combining differences. That's how I see it. It's a lot for me. It's just an extension of my painting. I really connect those, but I'm just curious if this was just something that you intuitively had in you, or did your art and your art making, your painting and your drawing or your printmaking, did it inform your cooking early on?
I think for me, part of it was what I loved about cooking as an art was that it was all of my senses. And it did the same thing for me this is funny to talk about this, because the thing that I loved about art for me, when I was in the dark room and I would, develop a photograph, I mean, the feelings that I felt inside when I could feel it, when I knew that it touched something in my soul, cooking did that same thing to me, but it used more of my senses. And, I have this little saying on my desk, which is funny. It's passion and creativity keeps me realizing my possibilities. And I just am very passionate about that kind of creative process. And I felt that with food. I know when I've created something that's really, it's very special and it does touch me. And I know the next thing you're going to ask me is what happens. People eat it and it's gone, but it's okay. It's a viable art. And there's nothing like the table. I think the table is another art. So, and then also sharing that with people, to me, was such a gift that I was able to give, because I've also loved teaching. I think that's just really important to me too. So I know I've thrown a big answer in there, but I really feel like it was that it just touched some part of my soul in the same way that being in the dark room did.
Yeah. And you grew up with this too,
It's something that really, you got there. I mean, that's an amazing feeling. And I've won a few awards for passion. So, and that's true. So anyway, you can see I get passionate about it. And I feel like that about cooking.
Yeah. And you had that, you must have been at the table receiving that from your mother, from your grandmother, like having
Right.
that experience, I can only imagine that it just planted that for you.
Right. Well, yeah, I think for me, it was also, there was something about the importance of food and the table and sitting with people. I mean, to me, that's also an art, being able to put that kind of table together. And I don't just mean the decoration that you put on the table, but what goes into, and I grew up with a mother who said, you eat 3 meals a day, you might as well make that a special part of your days. So, and as I said, cooking came because I learned it from my family, my mother, my grandfather, my great-grandmother. I think that in both sides of my family, I think that it just was inevitable that cooking would come so much more easily to me. But I do miss my art. I do have to tell you. And I'm kind of funny about Instagram and stuff. I'm like, I really think about those photos. And sometimes Karen, my assistant, will post for me. And I'm like, it's not up to my standards. And it makes me crazy. Like I saw one the other day. I loved it. And it was a great idea. But I was like, ooh, that's not quite like what I would have posted, but it's, I can't control everything. But, so yeah, I use Instagram and she always says to me, Karen, my assistant, like, why do you like Instagram so much? And it's like, it's my photography. When I get that photograph again on my phone, I should be using a camera. You don't know how many cameras I've continued to buy that I travel with. And, but anyway, I still use my phone.
Yeah. And how much of you were saying that the cooking utilizes all the senses. How much of the visual sense? I mean, it has to look a certain way. Like, can you describe when you nailed it? What does the dish feel like, smell like, look like, and all of that? Like there's a balance, right?
Yeah, there is. And, it always, when people always say to me, oh, the food is so beautiful, I don't want to eat it. My feeling is I want it to be beautiful, but in a different way. Like, I worked at Chez Panisse for 5 years, and it's ingrained in me that the food that is on the plate looks like it's fallen, out of the garden. It isn't overly placed. It's, a juxtaposition of colors and textures, and I just love all of that. For me, I think I loved working there so much because of that. But I do feel that food, yes, I like it to look great, but I'm not about the balancing act. I really like it. There's a certain look that I have. I know it's probably me. I think so. It's funny because when I teach a lot in Europe, and people come and spend a week with me cooking, and we stay in villas together, and people come and spend a week with me, and I let them style the plates, right? And I go, because they've got these things that, they're just so placed. Yes. And I don't like that. I just don't. My plates are really my art, Yeah. But it's about the flavor. So that's why I say all of your, senses. It's the smells, the touch, everything, the textures, it's everything.
And there's a letting go and not trying to, control everything. If you just drop something on a plate, there's a beautiful thing that can happen. It's like a drip on a painting, right. they generally fall in the right place, right. Yeah. And I think there's an ease of that. It doesn't feel overly produced, and you're going to sit down and eat this and have this amazing conversation, and you want people to feel comfortable. And I love that it's almost like performance art, where you're definitely making something, but you're more aware of the external, the feedback or the recipients, it's yours, but you're thinking bigger of everybody, of the people coming, where they're sitting, what the vibe is, the feeling, the food.
But I do have to tell you, it's also the feedback is so reinforcing for me. That's also very immediate, and I like that. And I probably need that. So
I love this, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah. And it's so funny how many times people say, oh my God, this is so beautiful, I don't want to eat it. See, that to me is a very funny comment. I want people to see it and go, oh, I really want to eat it. I don't want it to be intimidating, right?
Right.
I want it to be inviting and approachable. I hope that's the same way I teach. Oh, I know there's something I was thinking of, I want to tell you. Also in my writing, writing recipes and in my teaching, I think very visually. And I think that's why I've been really successful as a writer and a teacher, cooking teacher, is because I speak visually. When I talk about ribboning an egg, I'm talking about the whole visual aspect.
Yeah.
You want to leave a trail on the top of the egg for a second or two, and then it dissolves in, and how the sugar melts within, and it changes from being bright yellow to, like a creamy color, and, those kinds of, and you feel it with your fingers, and, it loses that graininess. That kind of stuff, that is something and people go, what is ribboning? And when you explain it like that, people understand what that means. And that for me is really important and I think it's because I have a visual background. I write visually.
Yes. It's feeling first. Mm-hmm. It's the feeling of the thing that you're following, that you're chasing, and you're describing that. When you're describing that egg ribboning, we can get the feeling from it. There's a visual, but there's also a feeling. And that's very much, that's an art approach. We're not thinking of, I better make sure the egg is the right consistency. Right. It's an emotional connection that you have.
I do the same. I was just thinking another example would be like scalding creme anglaise. You have the bubbles that form around the top and a skin that forms on the top. Or when you're making a stock, you don't want it to boil. You want it to kind of ruffle. You want it to just, and people understand that.
Yeah.
They understand that when they can see it.
Yeah, no, that is so great. And that's so interesting about your art form, that you have a recipe. And I know that a recipe it's not something you necessarily follow, but there's a sort of architecture, a language. It's almost like a sketch that I would use to doing a large painting. There's an architecture in this recipe, and then that's the platform to improvise and riff off of it. I mean, can you speak about the departure and how you work with control and planning, and then because that's a huge piece of cooking is just surprise and then call and response. There's a call and response.
Well, I think I understand what you're asking me, but I mean, I'm a person who ad libs all the time. I improvise in the kitchen all the time. So I take just whatever ingredients I have. And luckily I have the skills to be able to do that. But I feel like if you know technique and you are, pretty well versed in technique, you can cook and improvise with whatever you have. So I feel like there's a basic set of techniques that if you have a list of those and you have them in your brain, that's really kind of how I cook. So, for example, if it's time to make a souffle, if I want to make a souffle, I'm thinking this is the season right now. Okay, well, mushrooms right now. Mushrooms would be great. So I'm going to use mushrooms, or if it's, a different season. But I really go by technique and then changing it with the season and changing with whatever ingredients I have available. I'm a person who, believe it or not, doesn't really like to shop. I like to go to the farmer's market. I like to have everything in my refrigerator and the ingredients inspire me. And then I just think about putting flavors together and what it works seasonally.
I love that it's like a limited palette. You just choose what is available and riff off of that.
Right. So your palette is wide open then. God, I want to see your paintings now. Your palette is wide open.
It's wide open, but if you bring the goalposts closer in, there's almost more possibility, when you sort of narrow it down a lot. I mean, it's just so interesting that your creativity it's connected to other people. It's connected to seasons. It's connected to like nurturing ourselves and love. I mean, I think when people say, oh my God, it's too beautiful. Can I eat this? I shouldn't eat this. There's an unwillingness to like, come on, this is for you.
Right.
It's too good for me kind of approach. I know you've experienced that
or
probably.
I made it for you. Yes.
Yeah. Like a birthday cake.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like so transformational. It's like this. It's like a birthday gift. It's so much love. Cooking has so much more. It just accesses so much more emotion in many ways in the creation of it and then the implications of it. And I just love that it's so brief. It's just, right. It's like those really cool Navajo sand paintings that are amazing. And then they just blow away. There's just something beautiful about that.
Right. Yes. I mean, it really does, though. It comes easily to me. And believe me, not every single meal. And I know when it's not, it doesn't feel like me. Just like, photography. I know when it's not there. And I learned from my mother, never tell anyone, which is kind of interesting. So
I learned that from a painting teacher of mine.
Oh, really?
I watched him, and it's exactly the same thing. I watched him doing a demonstration for 35 minutes in front of a whole group of people, and I know him really well. And he was painting his daughter, and she was going through a lot of difficulties. She was a young woman and going through a lot of personal stuff, and their relationship was strained. And I won't go into it, but this portrait was going off the rails, and he was just sweating it. And he kind of managed it, but I've never seen him work harder. It was supposed to be like 15 minutes. It went for about 45 minutes. And then I went up to him after and I said, hey, Dan, like, what happened? Are you okay? And I go, I can't believe you pulled that off. And he looked at me and he goes, you never let him know.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah.
So you're the same way. You just kind of like take it in stride and they're still going to love it,
Right. Luckily that doesn't happen very often when I'm cooking. It's usually when it's just Joe and my husband and I, that I just go, oh my God, that was just not my style of cooking. But anyway, I don't usually do that. Hopefully I don't do that for other people. But, like for me, the weird thing is I don't think about having someone come for dinner and not spend the entire day cooking. But that's a happy place for me. I mean, I love to be in the kitchen. I really like it. It's just also, just makes me relax, Like some people get really nervous cooking. I don't know. It's a really good space for me. It's really, really great.
How has one of the challenges creatives and artists have is they're trying to develop themselves and they're looking for their style and all of this. And how has your style of cooking evolved as you've grown? How's it taught you? What has cooking taught you about yourself? And how is that showing in how you make food now?
I think really one thing that people say about me and my cooking is approachable. And that for me is, what I would like with my food. That's really important to me. That, like I said, you don't look at it. I'm not throwing it on the plate, but you don't look at it and go, oh, I don't want to eat it. I want my food to be approachable. I mean, my food is Mediterranean, so it's everything fresh, and bright. I love bright and flavors. I love acidity. I love things that are seasonal, but also I don't like overly rich food. So I'm making, that's also another, and I hope I'm bright. No, I'm kidding. But I have a lot of energy, and I think that my food also has a lot of energy.
Yeah.
But I think energy and approachable. And also, I would have to put the word passionate in there. I hope that my food and I come across that way, and I hope my food does. I hope there's love right there on the plate and nurturing. So what else have I learned about myself? That I can be incredibly hard on myself because I am an incredible perfectionist. Like every meal, everything I do has to be perfect. And that isn't always easy, but I'm always going towards one thing is that just makes me feel happy inside.
Yeah. And that comes out, sometimes when we're describing our art, it's sort of who we are. And I remember a few years ago, I went to one of your talks and I brought my mother and
I remember you said that, right?
Yeah. And she was ailing with cancer, 90 years old, sort of in the last part of her life and rarely could get out. But we went to your talk and, it was just really a great evening. And I think it had a lot to do with just the energy and positivity that you were putting out and that you were so approachable. And it really landed. And I remember you were just so generous. And I think that's your style, and that it's right. Cool that's what your food's like, right. That's who you are. And that's what you're making as a result right. of, and that's right. what we do as artists, But has it changed over the years? I mean, is this have you cooked the same? What's changed from early on?
I don't like food that's overly played with. I never have liked, even when I was young, I didn't like cream and butter very much. I'm really more of an olive oil kind of, so Mediterranean is really like, that's my love. That's what I write about. That's what that's where I spend my time every May and every October. And I love sharing that part. Has that changed? No. I feel like maybe sometimes my food has gotten even simpler, but that is just my perception. I don't think other people would think that. I'm not sure how much my food has really changed. That's really a good question. I'd have to think about that.
Yeah.
It's also a very different time to talk about food for me because for the last 2 years, I've cooked every single day except for about 3. So even I have gotten a little bit tired, but no, I'm getting inspired again. So I've kind of gotten inspired again. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. I mean, I just think that when you're making things, paintings, for example, if I look back on what I was making 5 years ago, I remember that. And I'm just curious if I know your product is eaten, but have you seen an arc, like is that, or is this just, you found this and knew this and have just continued it,
I think I've just refined it, except I have to tell you something right now. Do you see a shadow behind me? It's so amazing to me. Do you see the shadow behind me?
Like, I don't.
It's a light hanging from the ceiling.
Oh, yes, I do. Yes. It looks like an upside down umbrella.
Yeah, it's unbelievable that is the light coming through and it's on my back wall behind me. And it looks like art to me. And I was like first going, wait a minute, that's not on my wall. But I just have to tell you that.
It looks like it looks like a sculpture or something hanging back
so
there. Yeah,
beautiful.
It is.
But anyway, it's a light that I got in Morocco. My whole house honestly, it's my house also. My house is my art. I mean, really the way I live is my art. It is, honestly, people come in and they're, I mean, I have these beautiful Majolica plates, a whole wall of just plates that I've from every Mediterranean country. And it's everything, the colors, everything. I mean, I'm sitting in that room, so that's why I'm kind of looking around. But yeah, my art is my life, really. It is.
Yeah.
It's my cooking. It's my photography. It's where I live. It's the clothes I buy. It's, it's just all of it is, my whole life is incredibly visual.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm sure yours is.
Oh, no, absolutely. Absolutely.
Like that, seeing that behind me, I just was really struck by that. But I mean, I'd love you to see that light. My house, the things that I have in my house are like from Morocco or from Italy, and like the rugs on the floor and just stuff that I've put together, a painting on the wall. I mean,
yeah, it's a curation,
right.
And really, whether you're making art, paintings or cooking or gardening or whatever, it's a sensitivity and it's a curation of that sensitivity of what brings you alive. That for you, it's cooking, but it also shows up. That same sensitivity is going to show up in the way you dress, the way you approach people, all of that. It's just sort of, that's what's so interesting to me, that this creative path is really, everyone's, there's just different ways of going down it, but they all have similar kinds of challenges, but it's a refinement and a becoming of yourself.
The filming is also the same thing. I mean, for me, my show is definitely one of my creative outlets. And every single time I do a new series, so I've been on television, PBS, for 22 years, which shocks me. And that is really also one of my creative outlets, which I love. I'm the executive producer of it. So I have a lot to do with it. And every single time I'm doing a new series, I'm always like trying to change it up, and I want this it's got to be a new look, and I'm always perfecting it. And that's one thing. I mean, I'm cooking on the show, which is great, and you get to see the plates, but it's also just the whole art behind filmmaking, which is so great.
Yeah, that's a whole nother way to see it,
right,
and share it and share it. But
I think my restaurant's the same, though. I mean, I was really so involved, and I'm opening another restaurant, I'm in the process, a much bigger restaurant. But I love the creative part of that. I love the design of it. I love working with the architect, and But it's just a constant in my life. All of these, and as I said, passion and creativity keeps me realizing my possibilities. And every time they go by, if it's creative, if it's an idea and somebody comes to me, it's creative, I grab it. I have to do it. I just have to do it.
Wow. Yeah. How do you choose? I mean,
it's hard.
That's a big deal, a restaurant, creating another restaurant, a large restaurant. I mean, speak to me about risk. And bravery.
You know what? With the restaurant, I definitely have partners. So that's okay. I feel I can really rely on my partners. They have a long history of restaurants, and they're great. And they do from the heavy lifting to be able to make a restaurant financially successful. I'm definitely the one that's there with the tasting the food and making sure the food is right. But I'm lucky with that. With television, I am the producer. I have taken a lot of risks. I have in my life. I've just been lucky. I don't know. I don't know if it's hard work or I'm not sure, but I've made a very successful career for myself, working on my own. I guess I'm entrepreneurial as well. Because I've really done all these things on my own, and I take on a lot of stuff.
You've done them on your own. That's kind of extraordinary.
Well, the restaurant, I haven't. I've never really worked for anyone besides Chez Panisse. The last job I had really was Chez Panisse. Mm-hmm. So I left there in 1990. So since then, I have definitely worked on my own, building my own career. I have a very strong support team. I mean, I have an agent, I have, an assistant, I have a marketing manager, I have a producer and a director, but I've done all those things on my own. And I love, love, love what I do. So, when you love what you do, it's very, I don't know, it doesn't feel like work.
Well, no, absolutely. And I think, this idea that bravery almost creates luck, moving towards things that you're passionate about. And yeah, it's scary, but, and people, when people look back at it, it's like, God, you were so lucky. How did you,
Right.
find that or whatever? And it's like, well, I wouldn't have even been standing there if I hadn't said yes.
Right.
And I think that's a really knowing when to say yes or being willing to say yes more does more for people's creativity and their art progress than almost anything. And you could just feel it. I mean, I felt it when I met you the first time. It's like a fire that's burning. You're just operating from a place of fire, of possibility, and that yes. And,
Right.
and it's for however that is managed, because a lot of people are terrified of cooking for other people. A lot of
Right,
people
right.
wouldn't stand up in front of a video camera, but
Right.
there's some way that you're thinking about it that makes it doable for you. I do a bunch of things where the way I think about it is, well, I'm going to just share my mess because it just might be helpful for other people, and they don't have to listen. Like they don't have to be here. I don't actually know, but I think it's pretty cool. And this is what happened to me. Check it out. And there's not a big ego. You're not operating from a place of ego. You're just in it. You're just demonstrating a passion. And
Right, right.
that's an amazing business plan,
Right. But I've had some failures. I started a wine brand. God, the label was beautiful. And the wine was delicious. And then I said, I am not going to go to trade shows every weekend pouring wine for people. I thought, what was I thinking? I did that for 2 years. I won 2 double gold medals.
Whoa.
Which means every single judge gave me a gold medal. And I was like, I am not doing this. And I decided to, and I lost some money on that. But it was okay. I tried it. I made great wine, and it was okay.
Yeah.
So, not every single one is a winner. Not every single, but I really have had, I've met the right people, but I've also worked hard. I have worked hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so when you're coming up, so your big project coming up is this restaurant, which involves design, involves, everything from the furniture to the lighting,
Right.
to the music, to the thinking of, are you the one kind of overseeing the whole experience?
No, one of my partners is, he's overseeing a lot of it. And really my part is definitely the food, but I'm involved in every single aspect. Does that make sense? Like I'm there, but I'm not the one taking the lead. And I'm so glad. I don't want to design and make sure all the kitchen equipment is in the right place. I just don't. So no, I'm much more about the creative part of it. Like I like the design and I like the food. I like the overall, the architecture and the food. But, I'll say that, we need another deep fryer, but I'm not going to be in there telling you where it's going to be.
Yeah, right. Oh, there's so much in that.
It's unbelievable, really. But this is a very cool restaurant. It's 2 floors. It's in Willow Glen, the nicest part of San Jose, so South Bay. It's a really cool little neighborhood. We're on a perfect corner. It's a completely new build out, which is amazing. The building is being built right now. And there's an upstairs, downstairs. And upstairs is a rooftop bar. And the downstairs is a dining room. It's beautiful. It's going to be a really beautiful place. Really beautiful.
It's so cool. It's just like designing a gallery for where your art's going to be.
Yeah, right. That's true.
Right.
True.
It's like all that preparation that goes into it. So I'm curious when you're creating a meal, that there's these different parts. There's the part, the beginning part and the middle part and the certain dishes. Do you think of it like a sequencing? How do you think of like making an amazing experience? What plate goes with what pairing, and how do you think about pairing and juxtapositions and all of that?
Well, probably for me, I think more about the wine pairing than anything. But, for me, I'm not a person who has do you mean like when I set the table?
I mean, like they're going to eat this first. They're going to eat this.
Oh, okay.
And then they're going to eat that. And because they've eaten this, I want them to eat that.
Right.
And, there's just sort of what you get with your art form is chronology. Like you have time. you have time as a thing you're playing with. They're experiencing something, and then they're going to experience something else, and then at the end they're going to experience this. And when somebody makes a piece of art, or it's like a film, someone makes a film, there's a time involved. But with a painting or a more of a static thing, they just experience it once. And you have that. It's a meal,
Right. Yeah. I think about, first of all, I don't duplicate things, ingredients. I try not to. I try to stay very seasonal. I think about courses. I love the first part where people are, standing and you're making them comfortable in your home. I love that first part of sharing. And then I love the ease of when you sit down at the table, and you serve a first course, and it's something kind of comforting. And then the main course is where people really settle into it. And the dessert is just, and I never wanted to end, by the way. I never wanted to end. So I grew up with a mother who wanted to serve more and more courses because she liked to have us at the table. So I think I'm kind of the same.
What's so interesting, the way you're describing this meal, is that you're describing it based on the feelings that you want people to have,
right?
Which is really beautiful, Right. It's not like, oh, well, make sure that there's a heavy dish first and then a light thing. It's like you're backing into it based on how you want me to make people feel. And I love that.
I also want to kind of wow them, right? And I don't mean, or kind of aha, like, wow, I wouldn't have thought of that. I had a friend come over for dinner. This is a person who travels a lot, and she's been around the world. And she said, I did this whole Spanish thing. And it was, when I say Spanish, like I made all these tapas. And then after we sat down, I made this dish out on my deck. It's a dish called fedua, and it's Spanish noodles that is cooked with shrimp in this wonderful broth. And when you put it, fish stock, and then when you put it on the plate, then you drizzle it with homemade garlic mayonnaise. So alioli is what it's called. And it kind of melts on it, and you stir it all in together, and it's like just delicious, right? And then I made this torta de Santiago, which is a Spanish cake that comes from the Galicia, the northwestern part of Spain. And it really was a good dinner, I have to say. And she called me the next day. She said, honestly, that was the best meal I've ever had in my life. Best meal you've ever had in your life. And I really thought about it, right? I really did. It was really the drama of the evening. For me, I love the drama. It was the tapas and just all spread out on my counter, and people, tasting. We had a couple different wines to taste, and sherry or whatever. And we had some vermouths too, because I love vermouth. And so we had some Spanish ones, and then went out on the deck, and it was just like, we kept going like that. And it really was just, and it was that was a nice compliment, the best meal I've ever had. It was kind of shocking, but because I know she really has eaten some great food. But anyway.
Yeah, that's just extraordinary that you could have such an impact, and it feels so good that you could put all that together and then just.
That's probably like, you see a painting of yours on someone's wall, or. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you see it later, and it's like, that's kind of working over there, and
exactly. So yeah, it's, I don't know, you can see how I see it as a creative outlet. And that's what I mean. That was drama. It was the drama of that evening, I love that about it. I have to do another one this weekend. So I'm already thinking about it. It's a wine dinner, and it's some winemakers. So I'm like, ooh. And people that really know wine. God. And so I've been really thinking about it. But then I just calmed down and I said, you know what, Joanne, you're a good cook. It's okay. You'll be okay. I'm sure they'll love it. That's the whole thing. It's not just about what's on the plate either,
Yeah.
That's what's funny about cooking is it's really all about you being comfortable there. And I don't know.
I have a question for you, because I cook a lot, and I kind of want to be you.
Is this a cooking question?
Well, yes. No, well, one of the challenges I have, and I play around with this, I like to be really present. Like I don't want to have someone like serving me, but I make stuff in advance. Obviously, I know you can prep things in advance, But there's a real art to controlling this thing and enjoying it yourself and
entertaining the whole time.
Yeah,
I know.
Yeah. Like, so how do you do like that meal you said with your friend, like that complicated dish? And,
okay. So one thing I always say to people is I will make some of the things like you did beforehand and have some things that are like you can just go ahead and serve. For me, I'm not going to, let's see. I would make a risotto because it's the beginning of the meal and I would get the people in the kitchen stirring with me. So that's pretty easy to do, right? But I'm not going to do something like a souffle where I've got to do the timing and think about, having it come out exactly on time. Yes, I'll do individual chocolate souffles because they only take 10 minutes to make. And I'm thinking that could be good to make this weekend. I haven't made them in a while.
This is making me really, really hungry. And
I do a lot of things ahead of time. Like, for example, this weekend, I'm going to make a citrus sorbet. So I bought at the farmer's market some tangelos that I'm going to make a tangelo sorbet with a kind of citrus compote that will have some, I'm looking, passion fruit and also kiwi in it. Oh, and I'm going to make some chocolate coconut macarons to go with it.
Oh my God.
Sounds good, huh? But anyway,
really good.
Yeah. So what else am I making for that dinner? So for the first course, while people are standing around, I'm okay with this. It's called a soca. Do you know what it is?
No, I don't think so.
It's something you get in the south of France, and it's like a thin pancake, but it's made with chickpea flour and lots of olive oil and a touch of cumin. It's so delicious, and tons of so you put it in a cast iron pan. I put it in the oven. It cooks really easily. SOCCA is how you spell it. Then I take it out of the oven. I cut it up and you drizzle it with extra virgin olive oil and black pepper. Sprinkle it with black pepper. It's delicious. Anyway, so that's easy and people love that. But then the first thing seated, I was going to make it. This is all about the wine. So I was going to make, I have to remember. Oh, I'm going to make a crudo. So that's really easy, right? So just some raw fish. And then I'm going to put I was thinking I was going to use blood oranges for that and some other, I don't know. And then, but it's because of the wine. And then I'm going to make pasta. And the pasta, I'll have it all made and the sauce all made. So all I have to do is cook the pasta because it's homemade.
Right.
I'll make handmade pasta, garganielli, which is very beautiful. You would love it. It's really artistic. What you do is you take this board that has ridges on it and you put a little square piece of pasta on it and you roll it with it's like a pencil. You roll it on the ridges and it rolls up, but it puts ridges on the outside of this pasta. It's really cool. And everybody loves it. And I think about the art of it, and people have never had garganielli. So it comes from Emilia-Romagna in Italy. And I'm making just a simple tomato sauce because it'll go with it. And then after that, I'm just doing some chicken thighs with the wild mushrooms.
Oh my God. Wow.
And then they'll have the sorbet for dessert. So I think I would love to do beef, but I can't because one person doesn't eat beef. So I thought I'm not going to make 2 dinners. I mean, I'm doing enough as it is.
Yeah, I think you're doing enough, but wow.
Right.
Listen, Joanne, thank you so much for just sharing your world. And I'm so hungry.
You.
And just really, really, it's so cool to see how deep somebody can go into something. The way you're describing food and just the textures and the colors, and it's really inspiring. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Nicholas. Really, it was really wonderful to talk to you. And you gave me a different way to look at what I do. And I really appreciate that. I really mean it. I think of it as an art, but this made me think so much more about that. And I thank you.
Mm-hmm. Well, great. I will. I'm going to come to one of your cooking classes. I saw them on your website, so you might see me.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And make sure you come to Copita.
Yes, I do go there. Yes.
Oh, you do go there.
Yes.
Oh, that's great.
My studio's in Sausalito. So.
Oh, it is.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for listening to the Art2Life show. If you enjoyed the podcast, please help me get the word out by sharing it with your friends on Instagram at art2life_world. The recording of this and all episodes, along with a place to leave comments, see additional photos, and discover a whole new approach to making art, can be found by going to art2lifepodcast.com. And secondly, if you could leave a rating and review in whatever app you're listening on today, I would super appreciate it. It makes a big difference. And last but not least, before you go, if you'd like to be on my artist list, every Sunday morning I send out a video blog all about art making. Go to art2lifepodcast.com to sign up. And all these links are in the show notes, of course. Thanks so much for being here, and we'll see you next week.